Good evening. Welcome to the April 7th, 6:30 p.m. City Council meeting. At this time, we will stand for prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Heavenly Father, we just come to you, Father, just thanking you, Father, for all you do for us, Father. Just praising your name, Father, for all you do, Father. And I just thank you for what you do for the city, Father. And I just ask that you continue to bless this city, Father, and bless the growth of the city, Father, and just be with the council, Father, as we make decisions. Father, let us look toward you, Father. And Father, I just thank you for all the city staff, Father, that work so hard to serve our citizens, Father. Just give them a blessing, a mighty blessing, Father. And just keep the ones that are on the road, Father, today safe, Father, and just let them have a great trip and learn, Father, for your glory, Father. And I just thank you, Father, and I just praise your name. Amen. At this time, we'll have any questions or comments from citizens. And I see none, so we'll move on to number 5, presentation of proclamation proclaiming April as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month in Borger. And so I'll go ahead and read that proclamation. Proclamation Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas the citizens of Borger recognize the crucial need for efforts by both individuals and groups to promote awareness of the plight of abused children, to work toward prevention of violence against children, and to provide services and treatment to the small victims of their families. And whereas Amarillo Area Court appointed special advocates, the Bridge Children's Advocacy Center and DFPS advocate for children of abuse and neglect. And whereas Hutchinson County confirmed 71 children suffered from some form of abuse or neglect in 2025. And whereas our society has responsibility to protect our children and help them thrive in a safe environment, as every child is entitled to be loved, cared for, feel secure, and be free from all types of abuse and neglect. And whereas effective child abuse prevention and intervention programs succeed because of partnerships among a variety of entities, including but not limited to schools, religious organizations, law enforcement agencies, court-appointed special advocates, child protective services, St. Francis, the Bridge Children's Advocacy Center, and prosecution agencies, medical professions, mental health professionals, and victim advocates, and other community-based nonprofit organizations. Now, therefore, I, Karen Felker, Mayor and council members of the City of Borger, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of April 2026 as Borger Child Abuse Prevention and Awareness Month, and in doing so, urge all citizens and institutions, both public and private, to support Amarillo Area CASA, the Bridge Children's Advocacy Center, St. Francis, and DFPS, as well as other partner agencies, in their efforts to increase awareness of and services for abused and neglected children in our community, given under our hands and seal of office this 7th day of April, 2026.
Take a break.
We have judgments here.
Well, thank you, Mayor and council members. Every year, of course, I come up and talk to you all a little bit. So I thank you for the opportunity just to say a little bit in recognition of Child Abuse Awareness Month. As you know, as judge of the 316th Judicial District Court, part of my responsibility includes cases involving children and families in our community. That's a large portion of my of my docket. And from that vantage point, I see both the challenges that our families face, and I also see the extraordinary efforts of those who protect children and strengthen homes. So I get to see the good and the bad parts of all of this as they come before me. Of course, April being that time to recognize that child abuse and neglect are not just these abstract problems that we sort of have out there in the air. They are, in fact, affecting real children in communities just like ours right now. As the proclamation indicates, and our CPS numbers indicate that we had 58 confirmed victims of child abuse in fiscal year 2025 through per CPS, per their numbers. That's a high number for our county. It's almost 2 times the overall number for the state per 1,000 children. And so that's concerning. That our county does have that high of a number, and so it's out there, and we have to recognize that. And my caseload would indicate that, unfortunately, as well here in the county. In 2025, CPS had 144 investigations, and 43 were open for services, and 67 children from our county were served, and 58 actually entered services in 2025. So a pretty good number of children that entered services in 2025. In talking about that, we also want to emphasize something that's just as important, and that's prevention and protection. Our community responsibilities, they're everybody's really responsibilities. Teachers, law enforcement, our CASA volunteers, medical professionals, our caseworkers, and everyday citizens all play a role in noticing when something isn't right and then stepping forward to do something about it. I do want to recognize those individuals that in organizations in the community who are doing this work every day, often quietly and without any recognition whatsoever. One of those, of course, is our CASA volunteers. They're volunteers, but they spend a whole lot of time in my courtroom and a whole lot of time visiting children, going all as far as Houston to visit our children. They may be the only ones that actually put an eye on our children who are so far away because we don't have enough foster homes. And they can give me that report to say, yes, I've seen the child, I've been with the child, I see it, and I know what's going on with the child. And so I've come to greatly depend on our CASA volunteers to do that for me in court. Of course, the Bridge Center is critical in these cases, particularly in abuse scenarios, sexual abuse cases in particular. And our St. Francis volunteers and our, not volunteers, but workers, and our Department of Family Protective and Services caseworkers. They all carry very heavy caseloads with a lot of stress. And I appreciate very much all their efforts as well. Of course, we have our county attorney, Craig Jones. He represents the department in all these cases. And we have our attorneys for the parents and the children who aren't paid a whole lot of money to come to my courtroom and deal with these cases, but they do. And I appreciate it very much that they represent those who couldn't afford to be represented otherwise. And of course, our law enforcement and first responders, who a lot of times are the first ones on the scene and have to deal with the traumas that they see every day in these cases, and our service providers who help families to stabilize and succeed. And I want to particularly point out the Rainbow Room here in Borger. That's probably one of the best Rainbow Rooms in the state. It is a great, well-run Rainbow Room that really does provide for those that need their help. Their work matters, and it does make a big difference in all of these children's in these children's lives. So, for the broader community, what can we do? Well, we can be CASA volunteers. We can volunteer. I come here every year and ask you, I want more volunteers for CASA. I need more foster families here in Hutchinson County as well. So I want people to realize and recognize the importance of that. We need to pay attention to the children around us. Support those families who may be under stress, report those concerns when necessary, and promote environments where children are safe and supported and they're able to thrive. So early intervention often prevents more serious outcomes later. We know that's just a fact. So like I said, foster homes are needed badly. And so anything we can do for more foster homes up here and here would be great up here in the Panhandle. So from the bench, of course, my role is to apply the law and make decisions in the best interest of the children based on the evidence that's presented in front of me. But outside the courtroom, I can say just without reservation, the strongest cases, the best cases that happen are the ones that never have to be filed because they never come into my courtroom because it's been taken care of in our community and by those that have taken an interest in that particular case. Because a community steps in early can avoid a lot of these problems that we face when they end up coming into court. So it's not just about recognizing a problem here with Child Abuse Awareness Month. It's about reinforcing a commitment, a shared commitment that every child in this community deserves to have a safe, supported, and safe place to live and given the opportunities to ultimately succeed. So we thank you for your time and for the proclamation and your continued support for the children of our community here in Borger and Hutchinson County. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for what you do.
With the judge
And congratulations on Citizen of the Year.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yes.
That
So
was,
they're gonna want a picture if y'all don't wanna.
Oh, God, no, man, I would have fixed.
It's the social media era, people.
Okay. Say, Tom, Bob or Tom, one of y'all want to come to this side? Even it out. You were on the outside, so. All right, we're gonna do this one first. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And then 1. City. 1, 2, 3. That was almost bad. Now I'm taking selfies. Y'all just thought you were getting out of here quick. All right, 1, 2, 3. There we go.
No, you keep. It's yours.
It's yours, girl.
It gets read into the minutes on our end for perpetuity, so that's your fancy copy.
I let mine down so you wouldn't feel.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't look like I was the only short one.
Yeah.
Feet are dangling, they don't touch the floor.
Okay, we'll move forward to the consent agenda, items 6 through 9. If there's no conversation, can't think of the word. Anybody have anything? If not, we'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to accept consent agendas 6 through 9 as written.
Second.
All in favor? And they pass. And then moving on to item 10, consider and take appropriate action to amend the notice of election and notice of special election to be conducted on May 2nd, 2026. Mrs. Sauls.
We discovered that due to a conflict with the state of Texas, the SOS, Secretary of State, they have a holiday on the 21st. So they have deemed no election, no voting, period, on that day for anybody in the state. So we had to amend our days in our notice of election to reflect that.
All right.
I have a question. Is there a statutory limit as to how many days you have to have? Like if you take one out of, say, 14, you got to add one on the back?
See, I wondered that, but they did not.
Okay.
So I'm like, we normally have 7 days, so this time we're only good 6. So.
Apparently, yes, unless it's a state holiday, then no.
Okay. I understand.
And it might just be, to point out, so early voting will be Monday, April 20th.
Yes.
But then we won't
Tuesday.
be Tuesday.
Yes.
And then we will have voting Wednesday through Monday, April 27th, 8 to 5. So that Monday through Monday, except for that Tuesday, is 8 to 5. And then we'll have the 12-hour day on April 28th.
Yeah, which is Tuesday.
So since it's coming up, I thought I'd read those dates out loud so that everybody would know that come because that's going to be here. It's, we're well into April. So
For sure. Hey, ma'am.
Thank you, Stella.
you.
If there's nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the amended notice for the May 2nd, 2026 City of Borger general election.
Second.
All in favor? And it passes. Item 11, consider and take appropriate action to appoint election judges and alternates for the May 2nd, 2026 general and special election. Hello, Stella.
Hello. The state declares that the council will appoint election judges and alternates. So I have put names before you and to make your decision.
Okay.
You should recognize most of those names.
Yeah. We have people who are willing to work for us when we have elections.
Most of them seem from pretty familiar every year. Does anyone have any questions or anything they'd like to add?
No.
If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move that the election judges be appointed as follows for early voting at City Hall. Nellie Villasenor as judge, early voting ballot board, Robbie Billington as judge, precinct 11, Nellie Villasenor as judge, and Alvin Ferguson as alternate, precincts 14 and 23, Kathy Doyle as judge and Michael Doyle as alternate, and for precincts 33 and 42, Bertha Walker as judge and David Stevenson as alternate.
Now second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And then item 12, consider or conduct a public hearing and then consider and take appropriate action to approve on final reading ordinance O-002-26, renewing the standards of care for youth programs. Mr. Spradlin.
So we talked about this last week. You know, nothing's changed. We are just required to have a public hearing for any comment on these, and this is tied to the Parks and Rec summer program. I'll entertain any questions, but I mean, this is like year 6, so they're unchanged. You know, we do put the Borger Fire Department puts them through first aid and CPR, and then we've got all the procedures and everything for severe weather and all of that in there. So, you know, between the youth center and the park rec program, I'm very confident that our children are in safe, capable hands.
So I need to conduct a public hearing. So I'll open the public hearing. And if anyone has anything to say or would like to speak, and I see none, so I will close. And then I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve on final reading ordinance number 0-002-26, renewing the standards of care for youth programs.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And then item 13, consider and take appropriate action on a memorandum of understanding between the City of Borger and the West Texas University Community Resilience Corp. Related to a cost share agreement for a summer intern program. I'm assuming you're going to do this.
Yes, there were the next couple of items.
Yeah.
We had misunderstood some travel arrangements. Both Nicole and Deidre on their way to the Real Places Conference, so I told them that since we'd already paid for their conference registration, I'm sure I could handle the council meeting on their behalf. For the last several years, we have budgeted for summer interns, you know, to get some kids some practical experience and to benefit the city. This year, through one of those positions, we're proposing partnering with WT's AmeriCorps program. They'll offset part of the cost with that, and so we'll place one of their students through this program, and then they'll pay for a portion of the cost. Other than that, there's a little more upkeep. You know, this will be a more structured internship. You know, there'll be reports and things like that because they get it through the college coursework. So Deidre will be the person handling all of that. So this person will be working with Deidre and Nicole on community engagement and all their special projects through the summer. I'll go into more depth or entertain any more questions if you have any. But like I said, the money's been budgeted because we budgeted for the interns by ourselves. So this is just kind of a way to save a little bit of money and get the internship at the same time.
I thought I read where we were getting 3 interns this year. So one of them is coming from CRC and the other 2 from elsewhere.
Right, we'll be posting that opening probably in the next week or two. And so we just hire them generally as part-time employees.
Okay.
Oh, the interns are hired just as part-time
Uh-huh.
employees, just for the summer?
Just for the summer. And so there's some requirements. Generally, we want college students that are in some sort of college program. Lately, we haven't necessarily found one that like needs it as part of their college degree, but we've been lucky the last couple of years, but we've aged out on some of them. So Emma, who has worked as a summer intern in IT for the last 3 years, has finally graduated and has a full-time job. Addison, that has been working with finance, has moved on, and I don't know why
I lost her name too.
Anne Marie Stevens, has worked 3 years with. She now she is actually has to have a internship as part of her degree. She's an engineer, so she's hasn't had the structured in the previous year, so she was able to work for us during the summer. Now, for some reason, I guess working through public engagement, they don't think is going to help an engineer. So, so she's actually got to do an engineering internship, and of course, since we contract out all of our engineering services, we unfortunately don't have an engineering internship for her with the city, so she's aged out. So we'll I think Ms. Holt is looking at maybe coming back, so we might have one returning, but we'll be looking at a couple of others. And like I said, I do like internships and getting they all come away with a better and different opinion of city and what the city does and how they interact with that. And even like we talked about last week, I take our role in lifeguards and park rec aides. I mean, we are the first employer for a lot of youth in our community, and I think trying to give them a good experience and teaching them practical life skills to either benefit our community, hopefully for the long term, or to have fond memories so maybe they come back at some point. I think that's a very important role for us too. So I definitely do like internships and summer hands. We are with that, if anybody hasn't noticed, anybody's looking, we are staffing up for summer. So there's seasonal park maintenance openings, seasonal code enforcement openings right now. We've closed out all the summer, the youth center jobs. They've just about got those filled up. But it is if we ever get any rain, which should be this week, weeds and all that stuff will come up. But I will point out, code enforcements, they've been taking off a little bit of their normal duty. They've been trying to clean up and get the pre-emergent down around all the sidewalks the textile put in up and down Wilson and Roosevelt. If you haven't noticed, those have cleaned up pretty well here in the last couple of weeks. So we're hoping we can kind of keep up with that. So
the interns, I mean, are they always in a specialty like finance or something?
If a college requires an internship as part of their like Texas Tech as part of the Masters of Public Administration program, they require an internship unless you've got extensive, unless you're a professional that's going back to school, and they of course want you to do something in public administration. So we don't have those are generally the traditional students that are on campus. So we're not offering housing, so it's hard for me to go to Texas Tech and ask for an MPA intern because yes, we would pay them, but then they'd have to come up here.
Yeah. So these are usually people that come home for summer,
right?
Or something. Okay.
We call them an internship because we want them in college, and we want them to take something away from it. We don't want to call this a part-time job, so we're not necessarily looking for just a seasonal summer part-time job. They do get assigned past special projects or depending on the department they're in. So we want them to gain practical skill, but it's not like a structured internship like if it was required through their degree program.
Okay, that makes sense.
Now this
normally local people.
Yeah, we have requirements for that generally. This through WT will help get it. This will be an actual college student that's doing it through their AmeriCorps program. So that's one way. And WT is building out they do have they don't call it an MPA, or do they?
I'm not sure what they call theirs.
They've got a newer program that's trying to get off, and so there might be some opportunities with that. But
okay. Thank you, Garrett. Anyone else have any questions or anything? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move, excuse me, I move to approve the memorandum of understanding between the city of Borger and the WT Community Resilience crop for participation as a partner site for the 2025 to 2026 program year and authorize the city manager to finalize associated internships detailing consistent with the agreement.
Second.
And all in favor? And it passes. And item 14, consider and take appropriate action on Resolution R-008-26, authorizing the agreement between the City of Borger and the Texas Historical Commission related to the City of Borger's participation in the Texas Main Street Program.
So this is the legal side of our designation as a Texas Main Street program. It outlines our responsibilities and what the Historical Commission will do. So, and like we've known from the beginning, this just says we'll maintain the full-time Main Street coordinator, which is Nicole, that will submit the data that is required to maintain our accreditation, and that will follow all the rules and procedures. I don't think there's necessarily more to it. I mean, we've all committed to that, and if we don't execute it, then we can't be a Main Street city, and then we don't get the benefits of the Historical Commission staff and some of the things that they're going. So like I said, there's no real additional money side of this than what we've already been investing over the last couple of years trying to achieve this. So it's already built into the budget. And, we've actually, some of the next item we're going to talk about is some of that funding strategy that's finally coming together for the downtown as well. But this is kind of there are a few other things that'll come after this. We have the Main Street Project Board, which has been an informal board. So as part of this, as we transition into the designated, we will have to adopt an ordinance and make that a little more official as an advisory board. So, it'll have a section of the Code of Ordinances, and they'll get some actual legal, more like the billing standards or the Plan Zoning Board of Adjustments, how those are actually legally authorized advisory boards. We will have to do the same thing with the downtown board. And so other than that, I think that's pretty much the last step. And then just working the program and seeing what happens. I know that we'll have our big celebration in May with the First Lady of Texas coming to town. And so we'll have more on that coming up, but that's what this agreement does.
So does Nicole then shed all her other duties to be full-time, or is full-time just means she's 40 hours a week employed?
So the way that it's specifically worded, she has to be a full-time employee, that 50% plus one of her job duty is dedicated to downtown. And so really right now, she's doing more than that. Mackenzie's been mainly handling all the bookings and everything at the Dome. So we're in compliance with that, with the way that we're staffed, if that makes sense. I do expect as we go through some of this stuff, I think we might be trying to work pretty soon on getting her maybe relocated downtown to where she can be a little closer to the services and things providing to the Main Street from where she's at now. She's been working a lot back there in the public engagement office now, but she definitely has a passion for that, and we've had a good response to that. And people are starting to ask her for advice regionally. Dumas has been out engaging a lot as they try to go through those steps.
Anyone else have anything? If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution R-008-26, authorizing the 2026 Texas Main Street locally designated program contract between the City of Borger and the Texas Historical Commission, and authorize the city manager to execute all necessary documents.
Second.
And, all in favor? And it passes. Item 15, consider and take appropriate action on Resolution R-009-26, approving tax increment reinvestment zone number 1's downtown momentum grant program.
So, we established the tiers number 1 in 2018. What a tiers does is it sets a base appraised value, for the properties in that zone. And then each year, if that increment goes up, the taxes generated on that increment go into the tiers for the benefit of that zone. So we've been building on that for the last couple of years. There's a little over $468,000 in the tiers fund now, and it's generating just a little over $123,000 a year. So we're finally to the point to where we've got some revenue to start doing some things. So the downtown, the Borger Main Street Project Board has been working through, what they wanted to kind of focus on, and our feedback from the downtown businesses and things that we thought were priorities that should be funded with this first grant program. And so what came out of that is this Main Street Momentum Grant. And what it allows us to do is fund certain projects in the downtown district with some of the what we call the impediments to getting buildings, either keeping them in use or getting them into use because of the historic nature and kind of the size of those buildings. So this grant will offset costs related to roof replacement or roof repair, fire and life safety and suppression systems, code compliance for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, historic preservations, which would be facade restoration, architectural detailing, weatherproofing and energy efficiency, asbestos testing and abatement, and ADA accessibility improvements. So the maximum grant per building on a 3-year cycle would be $100,000. They'd have to submit an application. There's scoring criteria in this project for how they would score. The tiers board would then review each project. For projects over $50,000, they would have to come then in front of the council like we do with projects at the EDC. So we're using that same threshold like we do with the EDC. So if the project's $50,000 or less, the tiers board can authorize to expend the funds for that project. If it's over $50,000, the tiers has to approve it, and then the council has to approve it. There is criteria that if the tiers rejects a project under $50,000, they can appeal the rejection to the city council if they wanted the city council to have a second say on that. All of these projects, if you notice, what we're focusing on is projects that benefit the building. So what we're thinking is that initial investment is better regardless of who owns the building or what business is operating now. Any of these projects would stabilize and improve that building from here on out, regardless of who's in the building. So right now, we expect a lot of the first round of projects probably be related to roof replacements. We're hearing a lot of that, and depending on how the buildings are subdivided, sometimes there might be like 3 roofs that are kind of somewhat intertwined and overlap. So really, to replace one roof, you need to replace 3 buildings of roofs, and this gives us an opportunity to do that. This is also set up as a direct pay to vendor grant, so it's not a reimbursement grant. Part of when we started talking about the tiers and the need for a tiers is the tiers has less regulations than an EDC for how they spend their funds, so it allows us a little more flexibility with this. A lot of times the downtown business owners don't have the money to upfront the payment, and so you can't get anything done. So this, as long as it's rated and approved and we approve the vendor, then we can make the payment straight to the vendor, and then they also make sure that we have oversight on the project and that the project is actually getting done. That's kind of a pretty high level overview. Do we have other questions? Or
I had a question that I forgot to ask at the tiers, and I meant to ask it, but their responsibility is very, very small, which is good because that's the whole benefit of it. But how will they do direct to the how will they handle, how is that going to be?
So the tiers is part of the city.
Oversight of that, okay.
So like all the finances run through the city finances.
Okay.
So like and that's when you read in the grant program, staff will so every project will have to have a signed contract with the city, like a grant agreement on how that's going to work. So we will outline, when we can submit, and we'll have to approve the vendors, so that we make sure that
they will pay their part, and then the city will pay the tiers will pay their part.
Right. So we will pay everything up front to where they just have to pay theirs at the back end, or depending on right now, the matching parts are pretty small. We wanted them to have you need to be able to put some money in, but a lot of these, I mean, these are big buildings, and so it's easily $100,000 roof, and that's a lot for a small business. So like the roof replacement, the minimum contribution is 5%. So that'd be $5,000. And so, the grant agreement that we would work out, the city staff would work out with them and present to the tiers of the council for approval would have all the detail on how that would be. And so that's, we've got the means of we've set minimums low, and then that gives us more flexibility on how the projects might work. These are built to be staggered with other like EDC incentives if it's a new business, or if it meets one of their programs, they can use this for certain things and use EDC funds for other things. We are a part of the PACE program in the state of Texas, which allows low interest loans for energy efficiency improvements. So we can, take this and help them fill out those applications. So maybe they can get a low interest loan for part of this and do all of that. It is, they do have to meet with Spencer, with Leading Edge over at the EDC to review their finances and their business plan. We are making them update their social media listings and things like that. Some business models haven't updated, and there's some things like that we want them to do. I think people don't realize how many transient visitors and workers we have through town that go to Google and look up a business, and the hours are wrong or the address is wrong, and so they can't find it. That happens a lot. So we want to make sure that they do things like that, and that we get them into the enterprise process. What the Main Street program is what we're calling the roadway to the pathway to success, and this is just kind of one of those steps. And so this, because the tiers has got the little less criteria, we can set the reimbursement, the contribution less, and we can do direct vendor payments to help stabilize the buildings, and then we can budget that on a yearly basis. As we go through the budget process, if we want to start budgeting. Right now, we just got a big project, but the tiers, we'll start getting feedback from them. They want to dedicate so much to roofs, and after we do so much on roofs, we don't want to do any more roofs that year, and and how we kind of want to do this. But like I said, I think we all understand, and I know that, there are several people that have experience with downtown buildings on this board, and we want a successful, thriving downtown, and there's just more cost with those, and especially when we're trying to convert code compliance. Vent hoods is another problem for restaurants. This would allow some support for a vent hood to get a restaurant in, because that could do that. Fire suppression, we hear a lot about. This could help offset that for the occupancy use, depending on what that is. So I do think it opens up a whole lot of doors and helps remove some of those barriers to keeping and getting new businesses downtown.
Does this sound weird here? So the vendor can get the thing. They don't have to actually own the building?
Right. But the vendor has to do so like if the business, they have to have permission of the
right
of the landowner. But so if you've got a renter in there, the renter can apply with permission of the building owner.
Okay, I'm just curious how it was going to work out on that.
And then the building owner would have to sign the contract. So the building owner has to at least say yes, but they don't necessarily have to be the responsible person, and they may or may not be the person contributing the match.
Right. That's what I just wanted to find out. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, like I said, by direct vendor payments. So like, and we've talked a lot before, I joked with the tiers, or I guess it's not really a joke because it happened, but when I was on the council the first time, there was a little bit of a push for a certified local government, which is another program through the Historical Commission. It's pretty entailed, and it does instill downtown design standards, which restrict what you can do. And there was a little bit of pushback on that. And then about a year later, Big Mike moved his tattoo shop downtown and did a good job improving that building, but started painting it purple. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, everybody started freaking out about the purple building downtown. And these were the same people that less than a year before were saying, we don't want you to tell us what to do with our building. And so I get that, and I don't completely disagree with that. And I think, most of this council generally is less like that. So that's the benefit of this program, is if we're going to give you government money, we do want to make sure that the improvements that are being made are historically, I'm not saying that you've got to go find the, like the registered historic replica. We're not talking about, being on the national historical list of registered places, but, we want to make sure that it's not out of place. And so they will have to get approval through the project, Borger Main Street project, to make sure that it fits with the overall goals and stuff like that. But generally, that's a pretty easy sell when we're giving money to help offset that. I think that's a lot better way of handling design standards and some sense is having the cost share in it than just trying to force the regulation on everybody. So I will mention that all the projects get rated by the Borger Main Street Project Board. So they rate the projects and they score them. Then it goes to the tiers to decide yay or nay on funding. And then depending on the appeal or the dollar amount would come to the council.
And I did, Nicole did say something about, talking, like if they get one roof, trying to maybe check the buildings in that one block to try to get better pricing and local contractors to work with on projects.
Yeah, their goal is to work, and even the historical commission, when they were here, they were talking about that, like sometimes because energy efficiencies like storefronts, like the glass and doors, can make a big difference on some of these older buildings. And they mentioned, that a lot of times it's easier to replace, like it's cheaper per square foot of glass or square foot of storefront to do a whole block per square foot than it is to do one store. So to try to get multiple people involved and do a project like that. So I do think that I really, like I said, I really expect roofs to, we hear that a whole lot, that they either can't get insured because they can't get the roof replaced, or so I think we're going to end up doing a lot of roof repair early on, which I also think is very beneficial to the downtown area, because that's keeping water out and keeping those buildings tight is number one for their long term.
It runs multiple buildings,
right? And so that's definitely something that we need to address. And the nice thing about this, since it's coming from the tiers, it's actually all the property tax in that zone going back to benefit the buildings in that zone. And so it's just kind of a way of reallocating part of their property tax back into some of the areas to make it better. And then I think as we expand and bring some additional buildings online, I think that'll be a good thing.
Is there an overall cap on how much you'll spend per year? I see one on per building.
So that we handle through the budget process. So like right now the tiers is going to, if we want something before the end of this fiscal budget year, the tiers is going to have to recommend to y'all an amendment to the Fund 54 budget to use some of that money. And then we will have a budget discussion with them as part of our fiscal 26 budget to allocate those funds. So right now we have money in the bank, but we don't have a budget to actually spend it. So these first applications, as they come in, we'll have to work simultaneously with a budget amendment if we want to spend some of that in this fiscal year, or depending on how it is, which I would think we'd be able to get. Like I said, I know there are several businesses that have been waiting for this to come. So I'm not here saying there's going to be a line on the door tomorrow, but I do think there's going to be a need fairly quickly. So I think we'll be doing some of that in short order. But it was kind of a roundabout answer to your question, but.
Yeah, it does. Now, is the plan, I didn't quite understand how much money you said was in the account. I heard 68,000, but you couldn't spend 130,000.
There's a 468 in there right now.
468. Is the overall thinking of this to keep a minimum base amount in there?
I think that
spending to zero?
That we haven't discussed with the board or I definitely don't want to spend it to zero. We don't spend anything to zero, but at the same time, there's not necessarily a benefit of keeping a lot of money in there either.
It did grow a lot of interest, though. I was really surprised.
Yeah. Well, and interest rates might be going back up, but you never know with that.
But I mean, it did add to that fund so that we can spend it on the downtown.
Yeah, and I think those are beneficial. I to me, and that's something we'll discuss. We can definitely discuss through budget processes and stuff. I mean, I'd probably keep it somewhere around like somewhere between $25,000 and $50,000 just to make sure that you've got something in there, but at the same time, if a building's about to collapse because the roof has got to be replaced and we've got the funding to help do it. But then again, you've had leaks so in reality, the short answer to that really long way about it is it depends on what the tiers and you tell me.
Well, kind of what I was thinking about was if you spend it all down, I don't know how fast it fills back up. So is it like 468,000 every year, or
Right
does it
now
take
it's
us
about
5 more years?
128,000 a year.
Really, that much?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, we started it at a pretty good time. And then, of course, the thinking is as you improve the buildings and their tax goes up, and the new homes in Yucca Estate are in the tiers. And we kind of did the tiers, laid it out on purpose like that so that tax revenue could come in and build up a little quicker so we could get some more investment coming in. So, and of course, it's dependent on what the appraised value is and then what each of us set the property tax rate at. And then, of course, that changes every legislative session too. So I can't, with what the governor has laid out for their agenda for the next legislative session, if property tax goes away or school property tax goes away, that could impact they're going to have to address existing tiers because they can't just, there are other cities that have legally binding contracts through their tiers and stuff like that. So we'll have to see where that is. But right now it's about $130,000 a year with the 468 in the bank.
I didn't quite catch all that. We make 130,000 a year off of tiers.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And so in order to get the 480 back roughly, it would take us 3 years. So there would probably be some number in there that we would want to hang on to.
Yeah.
Okay. We don't worry about what the number is.
Yeah, like I said, we've not had we account for the money in the budget, but we haven't budgeted any money because we've not had a program really, we've been waiting for it to get to the point to where the very first year we made $12,000. And then the next year we made like $28,000. And the next year we made like 38, so it's taken the 8 years for us to get to where we actually have a usable amount of revenue. And so that's why we'll start having a lot more discussions on what those budgets want. Do we want to budget just for the Main Street Momentum Grant? Do we want to budget by Main Street Momentum Grant project type? Things like that. And there are, like some of the other things we're talking about that just staff and the Borger Main Street Board or project are talking about is like I said, because we can have multiple programs, and this may or may not be the only grant program we have. This is like right now we have an infill grant program that we put in place back when we were talking with the developer out of San Angelo or Abilene. That he had a really good idea, and we had a high likelihood of something happening, and then COVID hit, and so that kind of went away. And so we've got a program that we really haven't used to help. He wanted a little bit of money to offset. He bought existing lots and existing neighborhoods and put what he called attainable housing on. And of course, COVID screwed all of that up. And so, but we've also talked about even downtown, maybe looking at another grant program for second story residential activation. Like, helping people convert, second stories of these properties into Airbnbs or apartments or residences or things like that is something that they're talking to. And as how that works with EDCs, we've talked about like incubator space, like food halls, which would be a good way to help because, restaurant equipment is expensive, and how do we partner with the EDC for things like that? So I don't think all of our funding's going to, we're not going to want all of our funding to go to all of this grant. And I think, as time changes, we're going to want to see, and there's going to be a lot of future discussions and development on where that money all goes. But that's why we haven't budgeted any money, which is why all the budget stuff we'll still have to talk about money. So right now, all we're talking about is, even if you approve this grant program today, there's still no money allocated. We have money in the bank, but there's no budgeted, legally spendable money on it. So we'll have to have that discussion with the tiers and the council in the future before we finally approve a project. But it's not a whole lot of money, so it should be a fairly quick discussion, I would think.
Well, this just says anything less than 50,000 doesn't come before a city, and I understand that. And but everything you said makes sense.
Yeah.
We can worry about it another day.
Yeah, because even if it's below 50 right now, they can't approve a below 50 project because there's a no budget.
money,
And
yeah.
the tier, you have to approve the budget. So the tiers can't approve a budget. So we will get them to just like it's pretty much going to operate exactly like how we run the EDC. So they will get their board will vote on a recommended budget, and then y'all get final say on it. And so what I would expect is a recommended budget adjustment for the current 26 budget, and then you'll just take action on the 27 budget as part of our regular budget process, and we'll have that all called out through the regular budget.
Anybody have anything else?
Oh, ma'am.
If not, then I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution R-009-26, adopting the Tiers 1 Main Street Momentum Grant Program.
Second.
All in favor? And it passes. And item 16, consider and take appropriate action to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.